Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to join us to learn Kubernetes. So far, this community grows really fast. So how fast? In 5 months, we now have over 1,000 members. So think about this scale. We are keeps growing at almost 200 plus members every month. So this is our first meetup in the new year. And we are glad Google provided us the nice venue and also sponsor us the food for us to enjoy, to learn. Very much appreciated. And also thanks to all of the attendees. You guys makes us to be more excited to continue our Kubernetes meetup. And I would also like to thanks to our organizers and also our volunteers. Because our group size grows so quick, we also need more volunteers to help us. Next time, I will include all of our volunteers in the slide deck. Also, I'd like to thanks to our sponsors. So I mentioned Google earlier. We also have some other sponsors, like a Pact. Do you guys have heard of Pact? So the publishing company. They actually sponsor us 9 books about the Kubernetes, about the DevOps. So 9 of you guys should be able to get one of the books. And we also have CloudCasa sponsor us the swags. It's a little bit, actually, I do have a photo to show you in next slide. And we also have a JFrog. Have you guys heard of JFrog? Yeah, I don't really know much. To be honest, yeah. The guys reached me, say, we're going to sponsor you. I say, why not? Yeah, we do need more sponsors. We do need more volunteers. And we do need more speakers from the community. You guys don't want to see every time I was talking here to share some topics. So, but the good news is this time we do have 2 of the speakers are from the volunteer group to give us very good sharing. So thanks to our sponsors, we do have CloudCasa sponsors the, can I use this one? Yeah, here. So the stickers, if you guys want to decorate your laptop, so just like me in the back, so you can use the stickers. They also sponsor us the phone stand. So how many of you guys joined the November meetup here? So suppose the swag should be delivered that time, but it wasn't delivered. So I bring it here this time. Okay, we also have the books sponsored by Pact. So the first one is Managing Kubernetes Resources using Helm. The second one is the CKA exam guide. How many of you are CKA? Well, that's a lot, actually, pretty good. So that means our Singapore Kubernetes community really good at Kubernetes, right? And the last book is the 50 Kubernetes concepts every DevOps engineer should follow. So I hope you guys probably find the book are useful to you guys. So a little bit of our past meetups. So our very first meetup back in September, actually a pretty small scale. You guys can see the photo here. And the second one becomes bigger at Red Hat. And the third one, that's November, we're running here. It's a lot bigger. And the last one, December at Alibaba Cloud, we're trying to find the place, different place. So I'm a multi-cloud guy. That's why I try to hold the event at all different places. Okay, if you guys want to check the past meetup, you can find the link. So we try to record every time. So let me introduce today's topic. So earlier we started the first session, we started to teach the people how to automate the Kubernetes cluster. And then come back, the feedback say, we don't really know what's pod, or what's the worker node. So this time we're going to focus, first of all, talk about the Kubernetes 101. So some of the basic stuff, and then followed by our that topic will be covered by Sachin from our DSA. The second topic, I will cover the GKE 1.26. How many of you guys are running 1.26? Anyone? No? Come on. I was running. I was doing the testing. So right now, if you're running 1.26, if you love the managed Kubernetes, there is no other choice, only at the Google Cloud. Google Cloud is the first to provide the managed Kubernetes 1.26. And also Google Cloud is the only provider, the first cloud provider provided the managed Kubernetes backup service. That's the first party cloud native Kubernetes backup. There is no other cloud providers being able to do the Kubernetes backup, the native Kubernetes backup. So that's why I love Google Cloud. I love to learn. I love to share what I learn. So my topic is about a GKE 1.26. How to automate a GKE 1.26 cluster in 6 minutes, and then how to enable the backup for GKE. That's the product name, backup for GKE. And last one is from Nilesh. He's one of the enterprise architects at one of the largest bank here in Singapore. You guys know which bank, right? And he will talk about how to build the portable multi-cloud microservices with Dapr. It will be a very interesting learning if you guys are really coming to learn the microservice, how to build it, microservices across multiple cloud. And before we wrap up the session, actually after each session, we're going to have a quiz time. So 3 of you will get one book of these. And towards the end, we're going to have the photo time, open mic time. That's the topic for today. I guess any questions? Hopefully no questions, right? So far, good. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. I'm going to hand it over to Sachin to talk about the Kubernetes 101 first.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today at Google Developers Space. Our first topic is about Kubernetes 101. Today's speaker, Sachin Choube. Over to you, Sachin.
Hi everyone, welcome to Kubernetes 101 section. My name is Sachin Choube and we will be discussing the basic of Kubernetes in this section. So how exactly we reach or how exactly the evolution of container happens. First, on the left hand side, if you see, there was era of monolithics where we have a hardware. On top of that, we call it bare metal. We have a OS on top of that and we deploy application on top of that. That was the legacy way of working. Then comes virtualization. So what really happened in the case of virtualizations, we had hardware and OS. We got one more service on top of that, that's called hypervisor. On top of hypervisor, we used to deploy multiple VM or virtual machines on that. In the virtual machines, again, we have a OS, we have binaries, and we have the app deployed on top of that. Okay, so the same hardware can now deploy multiple machines out there. That was the era of virtualizations. Third was containerizations. In this third category of containerizations, what really happened is the hardware remained the same. We have the operating system, we have the container runtime. So what used to happen, you deploy the container and then you have the runtime which will help to work. So if you see these two differences, we now don't have the OS. Okay, so we removed the OS and now only a minor small version of container. Again, container have its OS, I don't want to get into that, but they still use OS. Then we have a binary and we have the application deployed, but the OS is very light, which have minimum features out there which solve our purpose. So this is how we evolve out there. Now, why Kubernetes? The best part about Kubernetes are the following features. Once you deploy any services to Kubernetes, it will discover it will have the capability of load balancing at the same time. So once you deploy a service, you just do the required configurations, and henceforth, whenever you make the request, you will connect to the appropriate service and get your information back. Similarly, you can also do load balancing out there, so you don't have to have explicit services out there. Kubernetes have the capabilities. You don't have to buy in the externals, but it has the capability of having the load balancing out there. It not only gives you that, it also gives you storage orchestrations. Okay, what exactly it means that you can have multiple options for the storage. You can take the help of the storage which is there in your machines. Okay, if you want to have NFS, you can use the NFS. You want to mount your container with key vault, you can do that. If you want to mount with secrets directly out there to container, you can achieve that. So it give you the provisions which you can utilize as per your requirement. Okay, so it requires certain, we call as container storage interface, which you have to add it on top of that to achieve this. One of the best feature about Kubernetes is automatic rollout and rollback. What exactly it means by rollout and rollback is just you give the instructions that I have this specific image, please deploy. And if you have configured the container or Kubernetes environment properly, it will automatically deploy out there. Similarly, you can give the instructions of rolling back, and your application will be rolled back similarly. Self-healing in a sense, once you deploy your applications, you want to monitor it regularly. How exactly you will do monitoring, and you have to have a third-party tool to do monitoring of that. If there is any service got stopped, you have to have a service which will trigger, it will kill the existing instance and give you that. That option is by default provided by Kubernetes, where if you can monitor if the service doesn't work, Kubernetes will kill that instance and create a new instance for you of a container. Okay. Similarly, automatic bin packaging. So you can define in your each container, you can define that how much resource it will consume, that it will have one CPU, it will consume only 512 MB of RAM from the complete node. Till that extent you can define. So we will discuss later. There are multiple options offering from Kubernetes, and each offering you can define the resources, how much each offering or service of Kubernetes you can consume out there. The next part is secret and configurations. Whenever you deploy any service, it will require certain information to be configurable. When that information can be confidential, just like a connection to your database, which have username password, which is a confidential information, you want to save that. You can also have certain certificates which you don't want it to be exposed to everybody. If you are using private certificates, so you don't want that private certificate to be known to everybody. So such information can be managed in Kubernetes. And last but not the least, Kubernetes is the best fit for microservice architecture. There are other, but this is the best fit. Kubernetes cluster is a distributed system where management of the system is called control plane and the execution of the system is called worker node. So if you take a diagram out here, you can see this is management and this is the execution part of it. So in master node or a control plane, we have 5 modules. The first one is etcd database. So it is derived from bvault db. It is used to store all the information about the complete infrastructure of the cluster. Second is scheduler, which also called as kube scheduler. The purpose of scheduler is which or where exactly the Kubernetes offering to be deployed, and based on the algorithms, it have 2 different algorithms by which it decide where exactly your containers or whenever you or your jobs will be deployed. So that is used for that. Third is API server. API server is the server which communicates with the external world. When you are communicating with Kubernetes cluster, you will be communicating with the app server, API server, and it will further communicate back to all other modules of Kubernetes. At the same time, it also communicate with worker nodes. Okay. The next module is controller manager. So controller manager is used to manage the desired state. So it have further services in it, which will based on if you can take example of replica controller. So if in your deployment you have defined that I need to have 5 copies of it, so the replica controller will always make your desired state of 5 copy of your container to be deployed in that. The fifth one is cloud container manager. This service is by default is used majorly by a cloud provider. If you are working for a cloud provider, then you might be required, but otherwise for normal usage it's not very friendly, it's not very used. Now comes to the part of worker nodes or execution part. It have 3 services. Container runtime is the service by which your container will be running. It will be executing based on the container runtime. Okay. Then is kubelet. Kubelet is the one which will be calling. So if you see from the diagram itself, so the API is making call to the kubelet, and the kubelet is, if you are, for example, if you are making a request to create a to deploy 3 instances of any image, so that you will get the instruction to kubelet, and kubelet will talk to container runtime, and the container runtime will build the container and deploy in that pod. Okay. Similarly, kubeproxy is more about communications. If you can see this example where client is communicating via service, and the service goes to the kubeproxy, and the kubeproxy will go and talk to the specific container out there. The service will decide where exactly your pod or your service resides, and similarly it will communicate to that specific, because each worker node will have these 3 services. So you can in normal cases, what I have observed or what I have heard is there are few clusters or infrastructure farm out or cluster out there which have more than 10,000 worker nodes. So in that specific scenario, it becomes very complicated to where exactly your service is deployed and which service you are going to use out there. So now comes the offerings. Kubernetes offer 4 activities. First is jobs. Jobs are one-time activity or any short scripts which you want to run and want to perform certain activity out there. So what exactly in this offering happens is Kubernetes will run specific service of yours, okay, or define script for a specific resources. You can define resources, which resource you want to use out there, and it's a one-time activity. For example, you want to perform that multiple times. It's like a backup of your database. You want to have this job done every day. So what you will do is, now your activity require a schedule. You have to schedule this so that every day at specific time your database backup to be done. So you will write the script in that. So this activity is done by cron job. Next offering from Kubernetes is pods. Pods contain it have container in out there. A best example for anything to be deployed in pod is anything which is going to be front-ending to the customers, or it will going to be communicating out there. So you will always deploy in pods. Okay, the best example is if you have developed any website, so you can use that. If you have API services, you will deploy in the pods or container out there, and which will consume out there. The last is a daemon. Daemon is a service which will run in the background. Mostly it is used for what the right term should be is administrative activity. Just like if you want to log certain information, so for log, it's like for example of FluentD or Loki, which are used majorly for logging their databases. Fileco, which is again a security service out there, where it is managing any security threat or any incidents happen out there. So this kind of activity will do that. For this video, I have referred this many sites. So because I have used them very detailed, so I like to give you the references from the source from which I have taken this information. Thank you all. Bye.
there.
All right, thank you so much, Sachin, for delivering informative session today. I hope it is useful to everyone. Please feel free to follow us by any one of the links here. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your day.
Yeah, we're going to have our first quiz. So 3 of you guys should be able to have the books. Okay, the first one gets the choice, 3 choices. The second one got 2 choices. The last one, no choice. Are you guys all ready? Okay, I can see the numbers still growing. Actually, I don't have to, if every one of you scan the QR code, I don't have to count how many of you are joining today. Yeah, it's already 80, 83. Oh, nice. Thanks everyone for joining us to learn. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward for volunteers. I'm looking from all of you guys to have a topic in the future session. If we got more topics, actually we can organize more than once every month. So right now we're trying to run once every month. So we're close to 100. I think we're ready to go, yeah? Let's have our first question. Actually, even online people, we can still join, right? We will give away for people joining online as well, because this is an ebook. Okay, we've got 3 questions. Press enter to start. Okay. The first question, which version of Kubernetes we don't have Docship? I believe Sachin did mention earlier, right? We got 15 seconds to go. Yeah, how to get to the higher point? You need to reply faster. Yeah, the only is the get correct, get more points. Okay, time's up. So the right answer is 1.24. Looks like not too bad. We got 1/3 of them get the correct answer. Probably slightly more than 1/3. Okay, who is the winner? Let's see. Love side. Yeah, do remember to provide us your name to talk to any one of us, Chirag or Bhumi. So we will capture your details and then we will send you the ebooks. Okay, let's continue. The second question. Question number 2. What is the full form of the gRPC? I remember Sachin mentioned clearly. I guess you guys, most of you guys should get the correct answer. Only 9 seconds. Done. Great. We got 78 people get to the correct answer. That's a Google remote precision call. Let's see who is the winner this time. Ami. Do we have multiple Ami here? Oh, is Anil the final answer? So based on the ranking, Anil. Who is Anil? Yeah. So interesting. Nobody from online get to the correct answer, get to the highest score. Let's continue. the last question from all this particular topic. Which company developed a Borg? You guys remember the Borg? Is it Microsoft, IBM, Google, or Meta? It should be the easiest one, I guess. Few more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Great. We got a 92. I'm surprised. We still got like a 10 plus people did not get to the correct answer. Okay, I guess that's the quiz for this topic. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, we want to make it clear. Yeah, we don't want people win twice. Okay. So this time it's me. Congratulations. Is that the same me? Or different? Or is that people from a Zoom call? Yeah, for the winner, we do need you guys to let us know your name, then we can send you the ebooks. Okay, thank you very much for joining the quiz session. I hope it is useful to you guys to remember these, you know, the short name like a gRPC. So it's more about to allow us to learn a little bit more, to remember. Okay, let's continue to the next topic. Yeah, I believe the next topic is for myself. Yeah. Let's do the quiz together later. Let's continue. So you guys can. As I mentioned earlier, I love Google Cloud. I really love Google Cloud. Why? Because the GKE is one of the best managed Kubernetes offerings. So GKE 1.26, right now, if you want to do managed 1.26 only at Google Cloud, if you allow to leverage the first party managed Kubernetes backup only at Google as well. So the first topic on my side is how to create a GKE 1.26. You just run one command in about 6 minutes. So my name is Yongkang here. As I mentioned, I love Google Cloud. So far, I did 5 times Google Cloud certifications. I love Kubernetes. I'm fully certified on Kubernetes. So my job, I don't have a job right now. That's why I got more time to learn, to get certified, and to support the community. So my recent community work, I was CloudCasa ambassador. So I love to learn, I love to share what I learn. So let's get started. I don't want to talk too much. Instead, I will show you how it works, how to spin up a GKE cluster in about 6 minutes. If you don't have a GKE account, cloud account yet, you can sign up in just about 5 minutes. I also have a video to show you how it works. So once you have the cloud account, you can log into the Cloud Shell, and then you can clone the repository. So let me show you straight away. So preparation tasks, you don't need a little bit of preparation task. You log into the Cloud Console, and then you click activate the Cloud Shell. And after that, you just run the command git clone. I'm going to clone the repository to your local Cloud Shell. And then you can optionally customize the cluster name or machine type, region, etc. But you don't have to. Then the magic command is gke-deploy. We're going to spin up a GKE 1.26. It takes about 6 minutes, and also comes with a sample database. So why I need a sample database? I want to show you how to enable the backup, okay? So once you've done the testing, you can destroy, just run another command to clean up the environment. So let me log into the Cloud Shell. Yeah, it looks like I log into the Cloud Shell. Log into the Cloud Console. I'm going to activate the Cloud Shell. So while we're waiting here, is there any questions so far? Oh, good. Okay, I'm going to authorize the Cloud Shell here. Make it bigger. And I'm going to browse to my GitHub page. I'm going to copy the command from my GitHub page. So the first one is K8SUG, yeah. So from here, you can see how to sign up a trial account, and then how to clone the repository. I copy the command and then paste to the Cloud Shell. Actually, I should already have one. Let me remove that one first. So I'm going to paste the command here. So only take about a few seconds. And the next command is, yeah, if you haven't enabled the GKE API, you need to enable the GKE API, so which I already enabled. So the next command, I just spin up the cluster. It takes about 6 minutes. So run this command, actually, yeah, run this command, it takes about 6 minutes. So while we're waiting here, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the slides. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, okay? By the way, are you guys running GKE? Any version? Anyone is using GKE? Yeah, quite a lot. So now let me come back to the slide. Yeah, we're running a little bit behind the schedule. Let me continue. So once you have a GKE cluster, or could be any other Kubernetes cluster, did you guys face any challenges? What are the big challenges? So I just summarize a few here. So you might have met the challenge, or one of the challenges is the backup. How to back up the containers. So the traditional backup tool typically doesn't work. What about the security? How to secure my containers? How to secure my cloud? I do have a few links also listed here. So I'm not going to cover all of these today. And the last one I listed here, how to migrate the containers. You love Google, you love GKE. You want to move your on-premise workloads to GKE. It could be from other cloud to GKE. How to make it happen quickly. So you need a specialized tool to help you to do the containerized application migration. So I also have a playlist to show you how it works. To do the migration, you also need about, typically for smaller workloads, only just about a few minutes. So it could be from other cloud, from other Kubernetes. It could be from a same cloud, different region, different availability zone, or different version. Google already released 1.26. You might still running 1.22 or maybe 1.20. How I can quickly to migrate to the new version? That is also another challenge. From the cloud providers, typically they don't allow you to skip the version to the upgrade. So I was running 1.22, I need to jump to 1.26. You need to do multiple upgrade. The specialized tool typically allow you to skip the version to the newest. And it allows you to understand the API differences from 1.20 to 1.22 or maybe 1.26. There are a lot of the API changes. Some of the API deprecated, some of the introduce some new APIs. How to make it happen when you move the application to the new version, still can be running okay. So these are the challenges. That comes to my second topic. So while we are building the cluster, so the second topic is I just focusing the Google. They just introduced the backup for GKE. The backup for GKE, that's their product name. So again, as I said, that's the first major cloud. Google is the first major cloud offering the managed Kubernetes backup as a service, and it is completely free. Okay, why not try Google backup for GKE? But in terms of functionality, since it's a 1.0, just expecting there is a feature-wise, maybe not that great yet, but also not that mature yet. But the point is, since you love Google Cloud, you love GKE, when it comes to the backup needs, why not just leverage the first-party managed Kubernetes backup? I personally prefer to use the first-party Kubernetes backup. So that comes to the topic here is why backup for GKE? Why I need to use backup for GKE? As I mentioned earlier, it's a first-party Kubernetes native backup. It is purpose-built for the GKE backup and also support migration, support the DI, etc. So right now, only Google has its own Kubernetes backup. So among the top 3 public cloud, and it is free to use. You only pay for the storage consumed. Because you take the container backup, you also need to store to the DCS, Google Cloud Storage. So they only charge you the storage consumptions. So for using the software, it's completely free. And it does support the container full restore or clone restore capabilities, or the migration. You might want to migrate from one cluster to the other, but there is a little bit of restriction is you can only move +3 minor versions. Let's say I was running 1.22, you can migrate to 1.25, but not for 1.26, because it's more than 3 minor versions, okay? And if you're running, you guys heard of the autopilot cluster. So Google really ahead of the rest of the cloud providers. They also have something called, when you create a GKE cluster, you got the option to say, I want to create a standard cluster, or I want to create an autopilot cluster. So it's kind of like you got a you don't have to manage the node pool. So it will be automatically managed by Google. You're not charged by the worker nodes or node pool. You're charged based on the pods are using. Okay. So how to enable the backup for GKE? There are a little bit of preparation tasks. You need to enable the backup for GKE API. I mentioned earlier, you need to enable the API if it wasn't enabled. And it depends on your version. If you're like me, you love the latest version, you don't have to worry about the second line, which I make it here. You don't have to enable the workload identity. You don't have to enable the GKE metadata server for the node pool. If you're running the 1.24 or plus. If you're running previous version, you need to enable these two. I'll also take a couple minutes. And once you enable these, you can enable backup for GKE. This step actually, I don't know why it takes 20 minutes. But the idea is you need to install the agent. And also depends on the version you're running. If it's prior 1.24, the agent will be running on your workload. And if you're running 1.24 plus, the agent will be running from the control plane. You don't have much more visibility. You don't see the agent is running. So there are some pros and cons. I personally I don't really like that way because I lose the control. I don't have the visibility. If I want to check the logs, you don't really have the access to the control plane to verify the nodes, the agent status. But from a Google side, they say this is more secure because it's running in the control plane. You can't be easily to access, also reduce the attack surface. Yeah. So as of now, Google GKE is 1.26. So how to enable the backup for GKE? I can show you shortly. Yeah, let's see if the cluster is up running. Yeah, can you guys see it on the screen? This time it took 6 minutes, 16 seconds. It's pretty fast, right? And not only you have the control plane, the node pool also created, and plus the PostgreSQL also deployed. So everything is ready. You can enable. The next step is I want to enable the backup. How to enable the backup? So you can go back to the Kubernetes console here. So as you can see from here, you got the cluster name it was running from US Central 1, and how many CPU, how many nodes are only for the testing. I don't really need multiple nodes, too many CPU or memory. I just one node, 2 CPU, 8 gigabytes memory. If you click the cluster name, you can see it's only 1.26. That's the latest. Yeah, 1.26. Okay. Once you've done all of these, I already enabled the API, the GKE API. Otherwise, you want to be able to create the cluster. So if you remember earlier, what else we need to enable? So enable the backup. Because we are running the latest version, the next step is you're going to enable the backup. If you click a backup for GKE, actually, let me make it smaller. No. I was not in the right place. So you need to go back to the cluster settings. There is an option. If you click on the cluster details, and towards the bottom of the screen, there is an option. You can enable backup for GKE. Can you guys see here? Backup for GKE, it is disabled by default. It's not enabled by default. So you click the edit button here, you tick the option to enable, and then click save. So that's how we enable the backup for GKE. And then behind the scene, they are going to install the agent to the control plane node. And what I noticed is if I keep monitoring from the cloud still, if I say I want to get the node status earlier, I noticed that basically when we are enabled, you will see it will lost the connection to the control plane. I don't know, behind the scene, they probably need some restart some of the services. But this step, it does take 20 minutes. We are not going to wait the whole enablement finish, just to walk you through how to enable, how to easily to enable the backup. Any questions so far? We're all good? Yeah. Sorry, can you repeat the question? Where do we control the storage? Yeah, that's a very good question. So after you enable, what we did right now is we just enable the feature. And then when you actually configure the backup, so let me walk you through here. So how to configure the backup? You need to configure a backup plan. So it's under the backup plans, you need to configure a backup plan. Part of the backup plan, it will say where we are going to store the backup. So you can choose the Google Cloud storage. So which region you're going to choose. So you do have the option. But I want to be able to show you here because it takes 20 minutes to enable. Yeah. But if you're interested, I do have a YouTube video I recorded earlier, how to enable it. And then once you enable, you do have the option how to schedule the backup jobs. It's part of the create the backup plan. You can say, I want to do the backup every 1 hour or every day, every week, and how long you want to keep the backup data from the Google Cloud storage. You can also optionally say, I want to run the job immediately. So basically run an on-demand backup jobs. It is also supported. And once you have the backup job completed, you can do the restore. remember the restore job actually, it's not from the restore plan. I was initially thinking the restore should be under the restore plan, but it is actually not. It took me quite a little bit of time to figure out where to start the restore job. So I figured out the restore is from the backups. Okay, it's under the backups, the tab. And from there, you can have an option to say, I want to set up a restore. So the restore, it's not a straight way, I want to restore immediately. It is actually asked you to set up a restore plan. So to decide what do you want to restore, how you are going to restore. And once you have the restore plan, similar like a backup job, once you have the restore job created, you can run the restore job, and then it will start to do the restore. So what I tested, you can do the restore. You can restore to the original namespace. Let's say I got the PostgreSQL running here. I can restore back to the original namespace, do the full restore in place, and I can clone to a new namespace, also supported. I can restore to a new DK cluster, also good. Okay, but granular restore right now, it's not built in yet. So could be in the future. Yeah. Remember I mentioned it's only a 1.0 product. It's still ahead of any other players. Okay, you can also have the option to choose to transform the storage. What I mean transform the storage is you might initially using one storage. So by default, you do have a few storage, and you can transform the storage to use a different storage class. You might have from one cluster, you're using Google Cloud itself, the native storage. Maybe from other cluster, you're using some third-party storage class. It allows you to transform the storage class a part of the restore. Okay, I do have two screenshots here to show you how to transform the namespace. It is actually, it's not that easy. I was thinking when I do the change storage class name, I just put to change the new storage class name, the namespace name. No, it is actually asking you to provide all these details. Where? Okay. So you need to provide your original name and then what exactly the JSON path. And then you put your new value here. Okay. So that's how you can use the substitution feature to allow to transform the storage class. Not just namespace, sorry. Also allow to change the storage class. You can also change the number of replicas. So maybe initially I was running only one replicas. When you restore to the new cluster, it is more powerful. You can run maybe 10 replicas. So you can also transform that. Any other question? Yeah, go ahead. Can you pass the mic? The question is, do I allow to restore to a different cluster? Yes, that is correct. We do allow it to restore back to original cluster or restore to a new cluster. Can be different versions, but not more than +3 minor versions. Yeah. Including PVC. You can choose. No, they just restore everything. Everything, including the PVC. From the. That is correct. Yes. So to enable the feature, there is no charge. Only when you consume the storage, they charge you. Yeah. No problems. So you can choose a different region, different availability zone, as long as you have the cluster is running and you have the backup agent enabled. So part of the restore, you can choose, actually, there is a drop-down list to give you the option. Here is all of my cluster. Which cluster you're going to restore to? Yeah, it can be from a different region. Okay. Yeah, last question before.
So how do I use this in context of
That is a very good use case, actually. So for example, I was running here in Singapore region. I have a cluster. Now I want to, let's say I want to use where? It could be Jakarta. I will use Jakarta. Is there any region there? Yeah, I believe they do have the region in Jakarta. I want to use Jakarta as a DR. So you can take the backup from the Singapore region. I mean, the whole containers. It is when you do the backup, it is based on the namespace you can select. So let's say my application, I got the 10 different namespace. I just back up all of these, and then I can restore everything to the DR side. So that will allow you to easily to support your DR use case, but also depends on your RTO requirements. So remember, this is a backup based the DR. So basically, remember, when you do the backup, it does take some time. When you do the restore, also takes some time. So, but it does support you the DR scenarios. Yeah. Maybe, wow, you guys got so many questions. Yeah, I don't really want to drag you guys the whole night. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good approach. Yeah.
Only two things which are kind of eligible for backup. One is and the PVC. The only two things you really want to backup. I just want to understand when you say backup, what all things it includes?
Yeah, that is a very good, very common question. I do hear a lot of people ask the same question. When I do the Kubernetes cluster backup, what exactly I need to back them up? There are some misunderstanding. People traditionally, before there is a specialized tool available, there is no other choice. The only thing you want to back them up is by the etcd backup. So basically, you just back up the whole database. But the problem here is you don't have the granular recovery capabilities. That's one thing. And you are not supposed to do the backup like every 10 minutes. Do the etcd backup. It might impact the system. So that's the traditional way. You just need a backup regardless. And when it comes to restore, also the recovery points could be very old. Because you ended up, you might do the backup every day, do the etcd backup. So you want to be able to recover to the latest recover points. So, but the new way, so forget about the etcd backup. I don't care. Because essentially what I really care is my application. Could be Cassandra, MongoDB, or PostgreSQL, MySQL running from the containers. So I just do the application level backup. All I care is if my whole cluster is gone, I don't really care. 6 minutes, I can launch a new cluster. But what I care is the application. After the cluster up running, I just restore my application to the new cluster. You don't really have much more need to back up the etcd. And you get to the latest recover points. And you have the granular Google backup for GKE. I believe they are cooking on the granular recovery capabilities. Well, hopefully soon they will have the granular recovery capabilities. Thank you very much. We are not going to have more time for the questions, so let's continue. That comes to another question. Do I really need a third-party backup? So by now, you guys should understand, Google, actually, they did a very good job. They can do they provided the native backup tool for you, and it's free to use. But what if I need to have the granular recover? Maybe somebody deleted secrets or configure maps. I just need that particular stuff back. How can I do it? You don't want to recover everything, right? Technically, you can recover everything, but it might take a long time because if your PVC size is bigger, your whole application is bigger, it might take a long time. And the other thing is it doesn't support one of the cool use cases. I love Google Cloud, I love GKE, I want to move to GKE. It could be from other cloud or from on premises. how to make it happen. Backup for GK doesn't cover that. So that's why you still need a third-party tools. At least here a few options. So Valero, that's the commonly used tool. It's free open source software backed by VMware, but it is only command line driven. So you need to specialize the team to manage this. So that's where there is other tools like self-managed Kubernetes. You still need to manage the Kubernetes backup. But that comes to the question, I love managing Kubernetes. Why I need to manage the backup by myself? So that's why there is another tool. It's called Managed Kubernetes Backup as a Service. I personally feel like that's the next generation, the best Kubernetes backup. You love Kubernetes. You love managed Kubernetes. Why not using managed Kubernetes backup? Okay. So if you're interested, you can try casting. Casting is a self-managed Kubernetes backup. It does provide additional features, support other Kubernetes distributions, and also support you migrate from between on-prem and the multi-cloud. And also it is more mature, very easy and simple to use, and providing advanced restore capabilities like the granular restore I mentioned earlier. All of these benefits provided by CloudCasa, and plus they have the built-in multi-cluster management and also built-in security scan. And plus you can also discover all of the Kubernetes cluster, DKE cluster, etc. And the DR made it easy. One of the cool use cases, which I personally love the CloudCasa is, I want to support the DR. So someone asked the DR, right? For you to use other tool, you need to create the GKE cluster first before you can do the restore. This particular tool actually allows you to on the fly. So when I select the restore, I can spin up a new GKE cluster, which is pretty cool. I personally, I very much love it. Okay. So just including a few reference links. If you guys want to try, so how to sign up, how to, my automation code all available here. How there is the CloudCasa documentation page also listed here. How to use backup for GKE. I also include the links here. Yeah, I love automation. I also have the created automation available from a GitHub page. So also cover other Kubernetes distributions. I think we're running out of the time. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope it is useful to you guys. If you guys, thank you. Yeah, feel free to follow me, okay? And let's continue to learn Kubernetes.
So the question is, you just want to back up one namespace, you want to restore that namespace. Yes, it's just one application. That is correct. It is definitely no problems.
So will I be able to do that while backing up, or do I back up the entire cluster and then restore only one namespace?
No, you don't have to back up the whole cluster. As we discussed earlier, what you really care is the application. So when you do the backup, you don't want to select the whole cluster to backup. You just back up the namespace, the application which you really want to protect them.
So the granularity is there. I mean, I can.
The granularity is based on the namespace level. So when you restore right now, backup for GKE does not give you the granular individual spec artifacts recovery. But could be in the future will be supported. So right now you can try CloudCasa or other tool that it does provide the granular recovery tool capabilities. Thanks.
Thank you for asking the question. So what do you release from that?
Yeah, thanks, Bhumi.
1 second. So after this session, we have a quiz together, both Yongkang session and Nilesh. So don't leave, and then we have photo session as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Bhumi. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Nilesh, and if you have seen me in some other communities, I put all the social media links here in case you would like to connect with me. I'm CK and CK8 certified, and during the COVID time, I also managed to get some other certifications. Along with that, I'm also co-organizer for the Azure Singapore user group. So if you are interested in knowing about Azure, I encourage you guys to join that community as well. We do have like a monthly meetup and a lot of interesting topics. A bit of background about myself. Anybody has heard about Goa? Okay, quite a few people. So I was born and brought up in Goa. Goa is a small place in India. You can see here. It's somewhere near to Mumbai. And it has a distinct culture history because Goa was a Portuguese colony, unlike rest of India, which was mainly a British colony. So you will find a distinct difference in terms of the architecture style, the buildings, and you have a lot of beautiful beaches in Goa. If you happen to visit India, I recommend that do visit this place. It's quite nice. And unlike most Bollywood movies where they show like it's a hippie place, let me clarify one thing. We don't start our day with beer or drinks. There are people like us, we start with like tea and coffee as well. So there is a misconception because most of the movies they show like Goans are like drunkards, and that's not true, I would say. And I hope you will agree with me at the end of the session. So let's get started with today's topic. I did a search recently saying what are the top 10 cloud providers in 2023, and these were the answers which came up. Apart from the top 4 public cloud providers like AWS, Azure, Google, Alibaba, we also have other contenders like Salesforce, Dell, IBM, DigitalOcean, and things like Adobe Cloud and Dropbox. So it's not only the public cloud, like as in AWS and the likes of Microsoft. There is also a lot of cloud things happening in things like Adobe, which is more of like creative products they have, and Dropbox as well. So some of the benefits or the reasons why people are adopting cloud technologies are cost savings, the speed, the scalability, security, and reliability. Then along with the cloud adoption, there is also cloud native applications, the way we build applications, which is changing. So we look at things like the innovations in the cloud computing, where we have every cloud provider having optimized things like they have their own Linux distributions, they have their own services which are optimized to work on their cloud. Infrastructure innovations, where we talk about infrastructure as code and automating everything as possible using things on the cloud. These things, they make developing applications quite easy nowadays. And when we talk about cloud native applications, it's not only the applications which are deployed on public cloud. There are also private clouds and hybrid cloud as well. So we have these scenarios where we are also might be in multi-cloud, and these applications, the cloud native applications, they can be deployed anywhere. These are some of the characteristics which we look at or we are aware when it comes to cloud native applications, like they are typically microservices or microservice architecture based. They are containerized. They have APIs driven by the APIs by giving us loose coupling. They are resilient, scalable, and automation by means of, let's say, CI/CD. Or sorry, one second. Oh, otherwise you make
Zoom.
yeah, let's make the. Can you make it a mirror? You want me to mirror? Okay.
And by the way, how many of you come from India here?
So Zoom people can see these.
Looks like no
okay.
people.
Okay.
So other than the people come from India, how many of you know Go
It
already?
is this one.
Not from India.
Duplicate. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you check? Cool. Yep. Can yeah. Can hide. Okay. Sorry about that technical interruption. So I was talking about automation, where we do things like CI/CD, IC, infrastructure as code, and now we are also talking about GitOps and things like that. So let's get into the business end. I think that was more about theory. Why are we talking about things like Dapper and multi-cloud applications? Let's start with a small application which I've been using as a demo application for the past few years. This is like a Tech Talks application for managing technical events, where I have a front end which talks to 2 APIs or services. One is called the Tech Talks Producer, and the other one is called as the Tech Talks Consumer. And to decouple these services, I'm using a message broker, which is RabbitMQ. Now, I also want to use polyglot programming here, where these services, they can be developed in It could be .NET Core, it could be Java, it could be Go, it could be Rust, or any programming language. That's the benefit of using, microservices. If different teams are working on this, they can choose their own technology stack, and same application can be built using multiple programming languages. So let's say this is the problem statement we have, and we are going to build this application. So assume that I was building this a few years back, and if I started, or in fact, I started this application 4 years back. Can I just move this somewhere? Okay, so let's say if I was to build this application 3 or 4 years back, and I'm going to start using .NET or .NET Core as my preferred programming language, this is how I would have started. The producer, which is producing the messages or tech talks, I have things related to the RabbitMQ host, the username, password to connect to that particular RabbitMQ instance. Then I take these values from the environment variables, and then I have the code which will actually send or publish these messages. In order to do that, I need to use a client for RabbitMQ. So I use the RabbitMQ.NET client, and I create all these infrastructure level things like creating a connection, creating a model, specifying the properties for the queue, whether it's durable, what should happen when the message is picked up, whether I should auto delete. Then I loop through all the talks that I have, and then I serialize it, and finally I publish it. So if we look at all this like 70 or 80 lines of code, the actual business logic is just about 2 lines. Doing this serialization and then publishing the code or publishing the talk. Other than that, rest of the code is mainly talking to the RabbitMQ and the infrastructure code. If I look at the consumer side, it's almost the same, with a slight difference that I use the same properties in terms of the connectivity to the RabbitMQ, the username, host, and the password. There is a batch size which I've specified here to pick the certain number of messages in a batch. I don't want to pick all the messages in the queue. So this defines what is the batch size of my messages, or in one batch, how many messages I want to pick. And then I do the same thing on the consumer side in terms of connecting to the queue, and then setting up those same properties, and finally writing an event handler. When the message is received, what needs to be done? So I deserialize it, and then I log that message. So that's the old way of creating this, or what I was doing, let's say 3 or 4 years back. Now, the problem with this code, as I said, is there is too much infrastructure code in that. It's not just the business code. There is also the code to connect to RabbitMQ and all those things. Now, this is for one language. For every language that wants to connect to RabbitMQ, I need to have that client library. I need to do similar things. The problem happens is every time there is an update to your client, if RabbitMQ version increases, you want to upgrade to a new version. You have to do it in 3 or 4 different places. Instead of that, wouldn't it be easier if we had just one component to update? And that is where Dapper comes into the picture. Dapper is a distributed application runtime, which gives you something called as components. So it has components for building microservices. In terms of things like service-to-service communication, we have state management. There is things to talk to the RabbitMQ kind of pub-sub mechanism. If we are dealing with serverless, there is resource binding. So if you have used things like Azure Functions or Lambda, we need those triggers, right? That is provided. There is actors. And when it comes to observability and things around monitoring the application, we have support for that as well, along with secrets and configuration. All this is supported for these programming languages. There is Go, Node, Python, .NET, Java, C++, PHP, Rust. In fact, any programming language which can talk to HTTP API or gRPC API can use Dapr. So if there is no native SDK available for your programming language, you can still use Dapr by means of using the HTTP API or gRPC API. And this can be deployed anywhere. On the public clouds, it can be deployed on any Kubernetes. It can be deployed on physical or virtual machines as well. So how do we get started with Dapr? So in our application, where Dapper is going to fit is between those two APIs, the producer and consumer. We are going to introduce Dapper as a level of indirection, and Dapper will be communicating with the actual RabbitMQ broker. So let's see, how do we get started and what changes we have to do to our application. The first thing we have to do for Dapper is Dapper provides a CLI for us to integrate with the application. So we install the Dapper CLI, and then there is the Dapper init function, which we call to initialize the Dapper. So once I initialize Dapper, right, using Dapper init, what we will have is Dapper uses these three things. We have release, there is a Zipkin, and the Dapper itself, which gets downloaded as Docker images, and Dapper starts this. So this is like a prerequisite for running Dapper in your local environment. Once we have this, then in the application side, let's look at the producer first. So I'm using a concept in .NET Core, which is called as a minimal API, which allows us to create REST APIs using very minimal amount of code. It uses this convention over configuration. So I start with a minimal API for producer. The first 3 lines or 4 lines is quite common across the minimal APIs. So we start with a web application builder, and we add some endpoints, and we add Swagger for providing the open API specification. The thing we have to add is this add Dapper. That allows our application to communicate with Dapper, or Dapper can be like that intermediary between our application and the component that we want to use. And then we use something called as the cloud events. So cloud events is like a mechanism which is trying to standardize the way we deal with events. Since we are dealing with a publisher subscriber mechanism, we are using like a standard for dealing with events. So we use this use cloud events feature. And then we expose our endpoint. So I have that generate endpoint, which takes the same parameters like before, the number of tech talks which have to be generated. And in my code now, I initialize or I initiate the Dapper client. And the only call I make here is publish that async event. And I pass the PubSub name and the topic where I want to publish this event. And then there is the actual payload, which is the actual talk that I want to publish. And only thing we specify in the code is the PubSub name and the topic name. So I have a configuration which is used by Dapper to configure the RabbitMQ related settings. So in my local configuration, I have this folder called as components, and we have the configuration for RabbitMQ here. So by having that Dapper downloaded, the Dapper CLI, I use this component type of Dapper, which is the kind as component, and I specify the metadata for my RabbitMQ configuration. So under the PubSub, we specify that we are using type of RabbitMQ, and we specify the remaining metadata. How do we want to connect to RabbitMQ, and whatever we were specifying in the code, like in terms of auto delete, the prefetch count, all those settings, they are now external to the code and they become part of this configuration. In terms of secrets, somebody was asking earlier how to manage secrets. So Dapper has this, some of the best practices implemented. And you can see here that I am specifying the secret reference. I'm not specifying the clear text secret. I can use secrets locally, and then I can use a similar secret mechanism, but I can swap the way secrets are stored in my actual target environment. So here, that's how I'm going to do it for the producer. On the consumer side, let's have a quick look at the consumer. This is also a minimal API. So the first 2 or 3 lines are the same. Again, we add Dapper because the consumer also needs to have that Dapper capabilities. Along with the use cloud events, because we are subscribing to the events on consumer side, we add this map subscriber handler. And with that, it allows us to say what topic I want to subscribe to. And on this line, we can see we are subscribing to that RabbitMQ PubSub, and the Tech Talks is the topic on that RabbitMQ. So once we have these changes, the way we run Dapper locally is If I was running a normal .NET application, I would build the application and I would just run it using .NET Run. But since Dapper runs as a sidecar, we can't use the normal Docker run command or .NET Run command here. So what we have to do is we have to use Dapper run command, and we provide application ID for that. We also provide the path to the component because we externalize that component definition. We specify where the component resides, and then we run the actual .NET Run command. So it's almost 8:15. I would have loved to run this locally, but assuming that you guys are feeling hungry just like me, I hope that you will accept this thing that we skip this part, knowing that this works. Okay. So once we have tested this, let's see how do we deploy it in the target environment. And that is where I want to go a step forward and deploy this onto Kubernetes. So in our Kubernetes environment, I have here a managed Kubernetes cluster with 3 nodes created, and I want to deploy my application. So when I want to deploy, I'm using the Kubernetes manifest files to deploy the producer and consumer. So let's have a quick look at those two. Start by looking at the producer deployment. So since we are deploying, I assume you know, or since we are in the Kubernetes tech talk here, I assume you know that how to build Docker images and how to publish those images. So assume that that prerequisite has been done. I have generated or I've built my Docker images and I've published them to this container registry, which is a Azure container registry. I can also use the Docker Hub here, but for simplicity, I've used the Azure Container Registry. And then I've given the name of the image which I want to use here. Along with the regular definition, I have to annotate my deployment with some Dapper specific metadata. So in the annotations, when I say Dapper io.enable true, this will enable that sidecar. And Dapper facilities or Dapper capabilities will be available on the Kubernetes cluster for my application. I also specify the ID and the port on which the application is running. And to deploy Dapper on Kubernetes, we can use Helm. Helm is the package manager, and Dapper is available as the Helm. So using Helm upgrade or Helm install, I can use Dapper. I'm using Dapper version 1.9.5 here and installing it in the Dapper namespace. So once this is done, this will install all the things on Kubernetes cluster which is required for running Dapper. So Dapper has an operator provided, and it gives us all the capabilities which we can use for our application. So let me switch to browser here, and I'm looking at Octant. If anybody has used Octant here before? Okay. 1 or 2. Okay, so Octant is like a visualizer for the Kubernetes cluster. You can get to know the state of your Kubernetes cluster using Octant. It's again an open source tool or just a visualizer. So in here, if I go into the Dapper system and we look at what are the resources, we see that Dapper runs certain pods. So there is this Dapper dashboard, there is Dapper operator, Dapper placement, Sentry, and sidecar injector. Those are the things which are created by Dapper when Dapper is successfully installed. So with that, I deploy my application. So that's for the producer. Similarly, on the consumer side, we need to annotate the consumer as well. So let's look at the consumer deployment. So I have the same annotations on the consumer as well. I enable the Dapper and specify what is the app ID and the app port. So I've deployed this again to save some time, and I would need your help to generate some workload. Let's go here. Okay, you can use your smartphone and just help me scan this QR code. And that will generate some workload onto the RabbitMQ. And while you guys are scanning, let's look at the RabbitMQ. Looks like somebody scanned, and you can see the number of messages there, 1,325. So it's basically calling that publisher, and it publishes 5,000 messages in case somebody wants to help again. I'll try from my phone as well. Okay. So you can see here we have, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Just help to scan the QR so that like the node.
And there we can see the consumers. I deployed initially one consumer, but we have auto scaling enabled, and I'm using another open source tool here called as K8SUG. So maybe that's a topic for another session sometime later. But what K8SUG does is it looks at the number of messages to be processed in the queue, and it will automatically scale the number of consumers here. And we can go back to Octant and see that in the consumers, whether the messages are being processed. So if I go into any one of this consumer and I look at the logs, we can see the log that the message is being processed, and each message is logged here, or each talk is being logged here. So that is how we can use Dapr with the Kubernetes. And since we are talking about polyglot programming, I also want to show how we can use Dapr in other programming languages, maybe Java, for example. It's like my computer is on. Please. Okay. There is quite a lag. I'm not sure what happened all of a sudden. Okay. So let's look at the Java producer. So on the Java side, I have a similar generate method. It's a Spring Boot application. I have a REST controller which exposes a generate endpoint. And in here, again, we create a Dapper client in Java and we use the publish event. The rest of the semantics, they remain the same. We use the same pub/sub component and the topic name. The consumer is again the same. So if I go back, on the consumer side, again, we put this annotation at our method saying the topic that we are using is the pub/sub name with RabbitMQ pub/sub, and the name is Tech Talks. So you can see that the code is much simpler and easier. And this is the same sort of API which will be available across all the programming languages. So we just need to know Dapper instead of learning the client for each of the programming language that we want to deal with. So let's switch back to the presentation and see what did we do. So in this talk, we saw that this was deployed to a Azure Kubernetes service, a managed Kubernetes environment. We had the producer and tech talks consumer. We have the Dapper in between. Using the Helm chart, we deployed Dapper, and RabbitMQ is also deployed using Helm in this environment. And then we are pulling this container images from the container registry. So this is what happens in the Kubernetes environment when we deploy Dapper. We have all these partition placement of the actor, there is the injector, there is also sentry, and we have the operator. And we can connect to any of those things on the right-hand side, which is, we looked at only the PubSub component of Dapper, but Dapper also has state store. It has these bindings, secret store. So let's look at what are the things which are supported under each of these categories. When we look at state store, there is AWS DynamoDB, Azure Cosmos DB, there is Firebase support, Redis, Cassandra. For the PubSub, it is, we looked at RabbitMQ, but we can also use Redis, we can use GCP PubSub, Azure Service Bus, or AWS SQS. For the bindings and triggers, again, the major cloud provider related services like S3, the Azure storage, GCP storage, even Twilio and Kafka are supported here. And same thing for secrets. So somebody was asking earlier about the secret, right? How do you manage secret? If you're using Dapper, you can store your secrets in AWS Secret Manager. It could be in Azure Key Vault. And using these APIs, you can retrieve the secrets in your code. And same thing for observability and other features which are supported. So we have shown only a few components here. As of this talk, there are more than 100 components which are available. You can use all of that and you can swap one another just by changing that PubSub configuration or whichever component you're using. The similar components can be swapped very easily without single line of code change. And these are some of the things why you would want to use Dapper. It can work with any language, any framework, and anywhere. It provides all those building blocks which we saw, not just for cloud, also for the edge devices. We can host it in multiple environments, and it supports 6 or 7 different programming languages. In terms of framework, there is a native support for ASP.NET Core. Spring Boot is supported. If you are on Python side, Flask is supported, and Express on the Node.js side. And it's also designed for operations. What we saw is only the coding side of things or developer side of things. We also have support for telemetry tools and observability tools. So if you are in the operation side, that can also be helpful to use Dapper over there. So these are the benefits and why we would want to use Dapper. That's the end of my talk. If you would like to refer to any of this, I've given the links mainly to the Dapper website and the subcomponents of Dapper. There is a shameless plug here in 2 cases. One is my own YouTube channel where I'm doing a Cloud Native Ninja series and I'm talking about these kind of things. So if you want to know more in depth, you can subscribe to that. And I also did a session as part of one of the collaboration to show how Dapper can be used in serverless environment using Azure Container Apps. So that is also available at this link and the video is there. So you can refer to that if you are looking at serverless kind of offering. If you want to look at the code, that's again published on GitHub and the slides are already published on SlideShare and Speaker Deck. So thank you. Thanks for joining this session. I hope you enjoyed it.
Definitely, there could be a lot of questions, but in interest of time, Nilesh will be here.
Yeah.
So you can reach out to him because he also runs the YouTube channel. I know this is the most exciting topic. You guys already said for more than 2 hours. Okay. We are allowing 2 questions. You can ask the 2 questions. Whoever reads the first hand first. Okay. Once again, after the question completes, there is an open mic. Then we have like a total quiz. Okay. This is Raghu.
Actually, we have used username password for using the Dapper in the application config, but while using the Dapper, I have not seen anywhere passing credentials. So how does an app authenticate to RabbitMQ, like through Dapper?
Through Dapper, I
Yeah.
use Kubernetes secret. So
Yeah,
since I'm
Kubernetes secret, so I mean, what roles are, what permissions do we give to the container which is using that secret? Is that like to that service account we pass some credentials to access RabbitMQ?
no, in here, right? If I go back, sorry. If I go back to my configuration, which I'm using on the Kubernetes, yeah. So again, I'm using a secret reference, but the encoded value there is actually the host name, the connection string, and it's of the format where AMQP is the protocol, the username and the password and the host.
Hope it answers the question. So next question, yeah, okay. Thank you for the interesting.
Hi, I'm Jack. I have deployed a Dapr system in my product environment in around 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, since the injector didn't work, the kind of become machine.
Haven't encountered yet. You can look at the Dapper logs to see what's happening, because you also have a Dapper dashboard. When you deploy, you get a Dapper dashboard. So if I go back to the Octant, right, under the pods, I should see the dashboard. If I go in this, let's do a port forward. So Dapper gives you this dashboard, and you can see what are the different things which are deployed. So I have, in terms of components, this RabbitMQ pops up. In terms of the applications, I have the consumer and the producer deployed. And you can also look at the configurations. So you can go into this and you can find out the details, why it might be stopping after some time. Okay. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you, Nilesh.
Thanks.
So Yongkang, you want to run the remaining one? Yeah, sure.
You want the screen or you're
Guys,
connecting?
again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Nilesh here. He will be here for 15 minutes. You also can run the piece. Yeah, you know, what's your name?
I did not experience with
Great session, Nilesh. Thank you.
Hey guys, let's continue the quiz time. You guys ready? No, this is a one. Just give me 1 second. Let me check if I share the screen for the Zoom attendees. Where is my Zoom? Sorry, give me 1 second. I went lost. I don't know where is my Zoom. Let me make sure it is working. I think it is working. Yeah, should be all good. Yeah, are you guys all good? Yeah, don't forget, I also have the stickers. Yeah, before you guys go, yeah, feel free to collect the stickers and also the phone standards. Let me bring it here.
Yeah, are we all good? Let's get started. We got 3 questions. Yeah, 3 books. Okay. So remember, answer faster to get more points, but don't get it wrong. If you get it wrong, regardless of how fast you are. Which cloud is the first offering managed Kubernetes 1.26? I would be very surprised if you guys, if I saw many people get it wrong. All right, time on. Yeah, that's all good. So definitely that's Google Cloud. So based on my, I say my Cloud Watch, I watch it from like a 1.23. So far, every time is Google Cloud is the first. Yeah, definitely. They commit every time. If the upstream Kubernetes release a new version, 4 to 6 weeks, they will release their GKE. So the next question. All right, this is a second question. Oh, actually, who is the winner? Did I see? Did I click too quick? Sorry, let me go back to see if we have the answer. Oh yeah, here we go. We can still see the leaderboard. Ritik, good job. All right, let's continue to the next question. Oh, it's already done, you guys. Which cloud provides its own native Kubernetes backup? That's great. Everybody gets it correct. So who is the winner? Yeah, remember, you guys need to send us an email or any message. Yeah, we're not going to give a Ritik again. Huh? That's Dr. Sandy Petty. Congratulations. So let's continue. The next one. Oh, come on. So which tool provides advanced Kubernetes backup plus security scans? For example, like a granular recovery. So remember, towards the end, we talk about a little bit other options. Yeah, we got 10 seconds to go. Time is up. So the answer is CloudCasa. Okay. So let's see who is the winner. Again. Did he get the one last time? No. No, that's different. Okay, that's all good. So this is a part of the quiz from the second topic. Then we're moving to the next quiz. Yeah, just a reminder, you guys need to send me or my co-organizer your name if you're the winner. Otherwise, we won't be able to send you the ebooks. So I'll wait a few more seconds before we continue.
All right, let's continue. Yeah, these are the questions regarding related to Dapr, which Nilesh just covered. Hopefully, our memory is still fresh. No, I can't click too quick. Let's see. Dapr uses which of the following standard for managing events? "15 seconds to go." Should be easier. Is it easy or hard? Almost. Time is up. Let's check now. It is actually cloud events. Looks like a Praveen is ahead of everyone else. Where is Praveen? Remember to send us your name, email. Question number 2. Which component of Dapr helps in managing the communication with RabbitMQ or Kafka? Is that state stores, or is it PubSub brokers, or it's bindings and triggers, or it's observability? Few seconds. It's PubSub brokers. Yeah, I'm glad the majority of the people get it correct. So our last question, before we go, let's see who is the winner. Praveen again? Is it Praveen? Where is Praveen? You did it again. You don't need 2 books, right? We take Sebastian as a winner, okay? Where is Sebastian? No, not here. Could be online, yeah. Please remember to send us your name. Otherwise, we won't be able to send you the books. Our last question, final question. Dapr does not provide an SDK for which of the following language? Is that Go? Is that Rust, Scala, or Java? I don't know. Personally, I don't know. I'm not the developer. Yeah, I don't know the programming language much. So let's see. It's Scala. Yeah, let's see who is the winner. This time, congratulations to Praveen again. So we want to give the winner to the second place, which is a Prince. Okay. So remember, send us a note. Yeah, I think that we'll finish the quiz. Let me just, we are a little bit run out of time. Let me see what else. Yeah, we'll probably skip this. Yeah, we don't have much time. Yeah, our upcoming meetup. As I say, we're going to run every month, but we haven't locked in the place and the dates yet. So next one will be February. And also, if you guys are interested to the DevOps, there is a DevOps Asia Summit in Singapore. So I met the guy 2 days ago. He gave me the 50% discount code. So yeah, take a screenshot. I will share you guys the slide deck anyway later. The dates, I hope someone talked to me. The dates might be changing. So they changed to June. Okay. So do remember, I do include the links here. Otherwise, you just do the Google search. So we're here at Google. Yeah, you just do a Google search, DevOps Asia Summit. You should be able to find the details. The last one, I love to learn. I share you 2 of the links for you to have the free learning and also certifications. Solo Academy, it's free, completely free. You can learn the service mesh, a lot of the networking related stuff. And the second one also about networking, but it's focusing on the multi-cloud networking. You can get the learning for free, and you can also do the exam. Once you complete, you can get the free certificates as well. We are still here. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to let us know. Otherwise, we are all good. Thank you very much for joining us today. Yeah, I hope it is useful to you guys. Please join us, volunteer. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, remember, here is the stickers and also the phone stand. Feel free to collect from here.